Con l'annuncio tecnico, questo webinar è disponibile in 6 lingue. Per ascoltare questo webinar in italiano, spingere il tasto Interpretation in basso e selezionare la lingua Japanese. Ci scusiamo per questo piccolo inconveniente tecnico che può creare un po' di confusione. Una volta selezionata la lingua desiderata, il bottone Interpretation sarà sostituita dall'icona Japanese. Vi assicuriamo però che la lingua che ascolterete è l'italiano. Per qualsiasi problema potete rivolgervi al nostro team di supporto tecnico attraverso la chat. Grazie e buon ascolto. Buenos días, buenas tardes. Este webinar está disponible en 6 idiomas. Para escuchar este webinar en español, por favor busquen el botón Interpretation, que está abajo. Por favor, aplástenlo y seleccionen el idioma Spanish. Una vez que hayan aplastado el idioma deseado, el icono cambiará. Para cualquier problema, por favor pidan ayuda a través de la chat y nuestro equipo técnico les asistirá. Que disfruten el webinar. Muchas gracias.
Good morning and welcome to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are waiting for 9 o'clock for the official beginning of our webinar, which will be translated in 6 languages. So please stand by while we wait for the beginning, and we're so delighted to see all of you here. Thank you for putting your name and your location in the chat so we can see you all around the world. Good morning and welcome to our webinar to celebrate Laudato Si Week 2020. I'm Dr. Erin Lothus, and we are here for our eco-spirituality session, Deepening Our Communion with Creation. We gather today to encourage ambitious action to address the ecological crisis, particularly during the season of creation. And we welcome every single one of you with gratitude. First, we want to ensure that everyone can hear, so a few words about the translation from Paolo Piero.
Buongiorno a tutti. Questo webinar è disponibile in 6 lingue. Per ascoltare questo webinar in italiano, spingere il tasto Interpretation in basso e selezionare la lingua giapponese. Ci scusiamo per questo piccolo inconveniente che mi poteva creare confusione. Una volta selezionata la lingua desiderata, il bottone Interpretation sarà sostituito dall'icona Japanese. Per qualsiasi problema potete rivolgervi al nostro team di supporto tecnico attraverso la chat. Grazie y buen ascolto. Este webinar está disponible en 6 idiomas. Para escuchar este webinar en español, por favor, aplasten el botón Interpretation que está abajo, aplástenlo y seleccionen el idioma Spanish. Una vez que hayan aplastado el idioma deseado, el icono cambiará y dirá español, Spanish. Para cualquier problema, por favor, pidan ayuda a través de la chat y nuestro equipo técnico les asistirá. Que disfruten el webinar. Muchas gracias.
So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will address them as rapidly as we can. We hope everyone can hear, as we are so excited to have participants from all around the world. We welcome every single one of you with gratitude for your presence online today to explore the journey between faith and ecology and to dive further into our own ecological conversions. We know passionate concern for our common home and care for creation is a Catholic priority. As Pope Francis writes in Laudato Si, paragraphs 216 to 17, I am interested in how such a spirituality can motivate us to a more passionate concern for the protection of our world. The effects of our encounter with Jesus Christ become evident in our relationship with the world around us. Living our vocation to be protectors of God's handiwork is essential to a life of virtue. It is not an optional or a secondary aspect of our Christian experience. So in a time of trouble, in a time of concern and pain that we feel for our earth, for our brothers and sisters around the world, for all our brother and sister creatures and ecosystems around the world, we feel their pain in a time of climate change and in a time of pandemic, but we find hope in a united world that has become painfully aware and is compassionately responding. We find hope in global actions to restructure our world along more just lines, perhaps even with green economic stimulus and recovery that will accelerate our paths to a green economy. We take hope in the power of personal action at a collective scale. We see the power of transforming our commuting, our working, our eating, our connecting. We rejoice in the news of divestments around the world, of bringing in a new way to power our future. And we take hope in the Holy Spirit, which is always leading us forward, poured out in our hearts, and renewing the face of the earth. So at this time, we open with a prayer, which will be offered by Andres Castillo, who is General Manager of Renova, one of the facilitators of Laudato Si Week.
Nos ponemos en la presencia de Jesús, en el nombre del Padre, del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo. Amén. Padre bueno, Padre creador, Padre compasivo. Nos ponemos en tu presencia para agradecer cada día que comienza, cada detalle de amor que nos regalas al contemplar la belleza de la creación. Cada minuto de existencia en este maravilloso planeta que has pensado para nosotros. Hoy, que nos conmueve el alma ver tanto deterioro que el ser humano ha causado por su falta de respeto a tu creación, te pedimos tu intervención para que nuestra cultura, sociedad y acción den un vuelco hacia una nueva forma de vivir. Tú que eres capaz de transformar los corazones, transforma nuestra humanidad, para que podamos ver en la naturaleza y en el otro tu rostro, tu voluntad, tu amor expresado. Señor, mira los corazones de todos aquellos que desde su humilde lugar generan acciones de concientización y capacitación. Mira los agentes de cambio que en todas partes del planeta cuidan y aman esta casa común que nos diste como herencia. Ayúdanos a ser cada día mejores administradores de la vida que nos rodea. Ayúdanos a cambiar toda cultura de descarte que nos haga olvidarnos de los más necesitados, de los pobres, del prójimo. Que podamos alabarte y glorificarte en cada pequeñez de la vida, desde la contemplación de las montañas hasta las profundidades de los océanos, desde las inmensidades de la arena del desierto hasta la imponente frescura de los hielos continentales, desde el hombre que abraza y ama hasta el hombre que ayuda y asiste. Que la razón de cada día sea gastarnos por los demás, y en ese desgaste podamos glorificar tu creación en todo lo que nos rodea. Que podamos hacer carne lo que San Francisco nos decía, porque dándose es como se recibe, y olvidándose de sí mismo es como se encuentra. De esta manera, Padre, danos la gracia de olvidar nuestros intereses personales por el bien común, nuestras ambiciones desmedidas por el equilibrio más justo. Que podamos darte las gracias de tu misericordia infinita por tu Santo Espíritu que nos da fuerzas para seguir tus pasos y con ellos tu voluntad. Que podamos tomar conciencia del tiempo en la historia que nos toca vivir y desde nuestra pequeñez generar un cambio individual que nos haga predicar con el ejemplo y gritar en silencio. La creación nos antecede y debemos cuidarla sin demora y sin cansancio. Ven, Espíritu Creador, visita las almas de tus fieles y llena de la divina gracia los corazones que tú mismo creaste. A ti, Madre Santa, Madre María, te pedimos la intercesión incansable por cada uno de los que necesitan el consuelo y el abrazo de Jesús, por los olvidados y por esta creación que clama por un cambio de vida. Que Jesucristo sea faro en la tormenta y su vida nos lleve a ser verdaderos testigos de su palabra, para hacer viva la promesa escrita en Mateo 28:20. Miren que yo estaré con ustedes todos los días hasta el fin de los tiempos. Amén.
Amen. Muchas gracias, Andres. And now we begin our session with our keynote speaker, Dr. Mary Evelyn Tucker. We're blessed to have her with us today. Mary Evelyn Tucker is co-director with her husband, John Grimm, of the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, where they teach in an MA program between the School of the Environment and the Divinity School. With John, she organized 10 conferences and books on world religions and ecology at Harvard. She has authored many books, including Ecology and Religion with John Grimm. They also edited Father Thomas Berry's books and wrote his biography. Mary Evelyn and John have just published an open source book called Living Earth Community, which can be read online. With Brian Swim, she wrote The Journey of the Universe book and film. She and John were the executive producers of the Emmy Award-winning Journey film, now available in online courses. For 40 years, they have led the American Teilhard Association, honoring the vision of the Jesuit science, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who inspired Journey of the Universe. Professor Tucker is a great scholar, the founder of the field of religion and ecology, a global citizen and a force of nature, leading countless collaborations among ecology, faith, science, civic society, and governmental organizations. We can thank Mary Evelyn for inspiring us all to wonder at the journey of the universe in which we share as we journey together to care for our common home. Thank you so much, Professor Tucker, for being with us today.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you to Thomas and Christina and Anna doing this week so graciously, to the translators today, to Father Josh and Father Augusto taking Laudato Si forward. What an amazing moment. 5 years of an incredible document. And in this exploration of eco-spirituality, I want to suggest that we as creatures, as community, and as cosmos have a continuity of being, of eco-spirituality. I had a funny experience this morning as I was fixing my tea early, and a mouse ran across the counter, and I said, St. Francis is here, the love of all creatures. I also just want to share a couple of stories to ground this in our own experiences. John and I were in our garden on Sunday, planting tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. And as I looked at these little seedlings, I said, John, can't you just imagine the ratatouille boiling on our stove and the smell of it, the taste of it? The nurturing powers of the earth that we can work with, that are now flowing over into gardening in schools to help young people understand nature. Even urban cities like Detroit having gardens for part of their restoration. And we take that feeling for the earth and we bring it to systemic change too. And we investigate how something like sustainable agriculture can emerge instead of industrial agriculture. I take another example. We were doing something very unusual, and that was taking a walk in the forest on Saturday morning, which we haven't done in 40 years of our marriage because we're so busy. It was a delightful time. The winds were blowing through the trees. The birds were flying, chirping, mating. The creeks were flowing. And I was reflecting in this moment of forest bathing, if you will, of how do we manage forests? We've been at the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies now for 14 years. And this was founded in 1900 by Gifford Pinchot, who said, the forests are for wise use, for utilitarian values. But in 1909, Aldo Leopold, one of the early graduates, said, no, we need the intrinsic value of forests. And he called for a land ethic. So what we're seeking now are values for transformation, values for individual eco-spirituality, but also for systemic changes. Now, eco-spirituality then is an invitation, I would suggest, into the living earth community. Something that's not simply managing resources for extraction, like forests and fisheries, minerals and oils, or even exploiting animals that we see has led to an incredible pandemic around the world, or factory farming of animals. This is a model that needs to change, as Laudato Si says. So how do we care for the spiritual source of our living earth community? Not just material resources, but spiritual sources of nourishment and renewal. Thomas Berry said often, the universe is a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. That's the transformation. That's the ecological conversion we're called to. So the value of Laudato Si is it underscores eco-spirituality as the wellspring of integral ecology. To bring together ecology, economics, and equity, we need an eco-spiritual foundation. In other words, eco-spirituality leads to eco-justice. What we've been trying to do for 25 years in the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology is to identify the eco-spiritual sources in all the world's religions, Western religions, Asian religions, and certainly indigenous religions. And we know as well these sources are in nature writers like Emerson, Thoreau, Muir, or poets like Mary Oliver. So the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies has strong ecological science and policy and law. More recently, it has environmental justice incorporated, a bit on the periphery, but nonetheless. But what is missing is a deep sense of ecological spirituality, such as Laudato Si gives us. This is the yearning of the next generations. Our students are yearning for this special sensibility, for their work, for the dynamism of their work. So the last chapter of Laudato Si, chapter 6, is called Ecological Education and Spirituality. In the Earth Charter that is quoted there, there's a call for a new awakening. It says, let ours be a time remembered for the awakening of a new reverence for life, the firm resolve to achieve sustainability, the quickening of the struggle for justice and peace, and the joyful celebration of life. All of those themes resonate throughout Laudato Si. But also the Pope is calling there for ecological education leading to ecological citizenship, a global citizenship for our planetary awakening. And as well, he's calling for ecological ethics and virtues to ground us in the transformation we need. So the call in this last chapter for ecological conversion is a change of mindset from materialism and consumerism, which is like a tsunami washing over us, bringing despair, bringing a sense of aimlessness and deep, deep interior struggles. The Pope then invites us into spiritualities in the Catholic tradition and in others, I would suggest. He says, where life of the spirit is not disassociated from the body or from nature or worldly realities, but lived in and with them in communion with all that surrounds us. In other words, the antidote to materialism is a this worldly spirituality, not an otherworldly spirituality. What then is this eco-spirituality that we're invited into that's so intrinsic to Laudato Si? If we return to chapter 2, we can find some sources there. The Gospel of Creation is the title, and 3 of the sections I'll touch on. One is, we reinstate the mystery of the universe. Here's a beautiful passage in that section. The universe is shaped by open and intercommunicating systems in which we can discern countless forms of relationship and participation. That's also the invitation of Teilhard de Chardin, and I'll return to him. A second subtitle in this section is the message of each creature in the harmony of creation is calling us. And the Canadian bishops say, from panoramic vistas to the tiniest living form, nature is a constant source of wonder and awe. It is also a continuing revelation of the divine. The Brazilian bishops say nature as a whole, it not only manifests God, but it also is a locus of his presence. Another section in chapter 2 is universal communion, where familial relationships, kinship, the fraternity of all things is what we are invited into. And if we lose that, the Pope mentions we can feel desertification of soil almost as a physical ailment, or the extinctions of species as a painful disfiguration. All of this chapter is, of course, infused with the Canticle of the Creatures of St. Francis, the songs, the hymn to Brother Sun, Sister Moon. Ecological spirituality then draws on 2 basic things, an incarnational spirituality and a sacramental spirituality. Incarnational spirituality in the Catholic tradition, you could say, begins in some ways with the Gospel of St. John, the opening passage. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Logos, this inner ordering principle of all reality from the great flaring forth until the present. That subjectivity of matter itself is an incarnational invitation to respect and reverence. A sacramental spirituality is clearly part of the richness of this tradition, where nature and all its elements are held to be sacred. So the question is, then how can we baptize with water that's defiled or polluted? That's our challenge now. Or how can we have a Eucharist of bread and wine that is grown with pesticides and defiled soil? We then are joined instead to new forms of ritual, clearly the season of creation, connected to the seasons of the daily cycle and the earthly cycle of life. Why is it that winter solstice and Christmas are so closely aligned, or Easter and the equinox? Our rituals embed us in these great rituals of the cosmos. So we need as well rituals for mourning, for loss, for extinction, for what has been done. All of this then, an incarnational spirituality, a sacramental sensibility, a deep sense of ritual, can be overflowing into action. And that's what the Pope is calling for us, for caring for creation, caring for all creatures. All of this, I would suggest, rests in a cosmic eco-spirituality. And this is the great gift of Teilhard de Chardin, the Jesuit priest and scientist, who said three things for this moment. He talked about the within of things, the subjectivity of things, the interiority of matter, this living earth community sensibility that we can resonate with, that we have a sense of the grace-filled presence of the earth and all of its ecosystems. That incarnational sensibility was crucial for Teilhard. But he also had this sacramental sensibility when he was in the Ordos Desert in China and he did not have the bread or the wine. He offered up the elements of creation, of holy matter in the Mass on the World, a magnificent ritual for us all to recover, I think, in our times. And finally, his sense of a sacred universe is so inspiring. As you know, he said, we live within a divine milieu. The Eastern Orthodox tradition of Bartholomew understands this. Our own tradition understands this. Other religions embrace it as well. We live in a sacred universe. And his hymn to the universe is a counterpoint to the canticle of the creatures. The hymn to the universe is a song for our times. He says, Teilhard, by virtue of the creation and still more of the incarnation, nothing here below is profane for those who know how to see. So Teilhard's invitation into a dynamic, unfolding universe of evolutionary deep time enhances our understanding of ecological spirituality for every form of life, from the species to the soil, to the trees, the forests. All of it arises from this deep time evolution, the journey of the universe. Let me conclude with 4 metaphors for ecological spirituality. They're active gerunds. It's orienting, grounding, nurturing, and transforming. These are ecological spiritualities, orienting to the cosmos, to the stars, the galaxies, planetary systems, knowing we come from the explosion of stars, we are stardust, all of life here on Earth. How precious is that? Grounding in these systems of nature that nurture us and sustain us. They are our body as we interact with this body of the divine. Nurturing then food that nurtures us, bread and wine, the forests that shelter us, and transforming the fire of love for the transformative action, for resilience, and that's what we need most, resilience and hope that ecological spirituality can give us, especially for this extraordinary call of the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Thank you so much, and many blessings on your work around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Tucker, for your profound words, your beautiful reminder that we walk in a sacred universe as a communion of subjects, that all of us are brothers and sisters called together in this journey of the universe towards a place of greater communion and of greater justice. We're so grateful. We're so grateful for your words and your presence with us. And to carry our webinar forward, we have case studies from leaders within the Global Catholic Climate Movement. I'm delighted to turn this segment of the webinar over to them. We will have 3 case studies, and first, Brother Ben Ayodi, who is Program Manager of GCCM Africa, will give an explanation of the season of creation. So Brother Ben.
Thank you. Try to share my screen. So thank you. And greetings from Kenya. Happy Laudato Si week. The season of creation is an annual celebration from September 1st to October 4th, when Christians worldwide pray and take action for creation. September 1st was designated as Creation Day by the Ecumenical Patriarchate Demetrius I in 1989. The season concludes on October 4th on the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. The Orthodox Church here starts on 1st of September with a commemoration of how God created the world. On 4th of October, Catholics and other churches from the Western tradition commemorate the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, known to many as the author of the Canticle of Creatures and the patron saint of ecology. In communion with the Patriarch of Constantinople, the Orthodox Church, the World Council of Churches, and the Christians from all over the world, Pope Francis in 2015, lamenting the rate at which the natural world is misused as a result of human activities, ratified and announced that the Catholic Church will also mark September 1st as the World Day of Prayer for the Care of Our Common Home, which is celebrated till the 4th of October, the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. In 2018, the Global Catholic Climate Movement coordinated with the Vatican to issue their first invitation to Catholics to celebrate the season of creation. Last year, 2019, Pope Francis made his first official statement promoting the season of creation and calling for Catholics and non-Catholics to care for creation. The season of creation is celebrated by Christians of all traditions, and the leaders of faith traditions have encouraged the faithful to participate, so it has become an ecumenical event. As that picture in Assisi, we had leaders from all faiths, and throughout the years, major Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, and Anglican organizations have joined to encourage the 2.2 billion Christians worldwide to pray and act on ecological issues. In 2016, Pope Francis and Patriarch Bartholomew I released their special message for the World Day of Prayer for the care of creation, kicking off the month-long season of creation celebrations. Both leaders used a strong language to stress the urgency of the ecological crisis and the need to take action on climate change. During the season of creation, Christians around the world rejoice together. We are called to honor the Creator by loving creation and each other. It is a time to slow down and focus on what matters. During this special time each year, we repair and restore relationships with each other and with all creation. It is a time to reconcile. It is a time to repent. It is a time to love creation, each other, and indeed to love God. This time for creation offers, in the words of Pope Francis, individual believers and communities a fitting opportunity to reaffirm their personal vocation to be good stewards of creation. In our Capuchin communities and missions, for example, during season of creation, our liturgy reflects the care for creation, and especially on the Feast of St. Francis. We read from Laudato Si before our common meals. We meditate with creation. We bless animals, as you can see in the picture there. I was presiding over the blessing of animals in Missouri. During the Sunday masses in some of our rural parishes, we encourage the faithful to bring, as their offering, organic farm products like vegetables, fruits, milk, eggs, honey, cereals, and even goats and chicken. This helps to feed both the priest and the poor among us. In this way, people are able to relate with creation in a special way with each other and indeed with God. For the last 2 years, the season of creation has gained momentum in parts of Africa, including in South Africa, Lesotho, Nigeria, Cameroon, the DRC Congo, and Kenya. In the pictures you see here, this is a national Marian shrine in a place called Subukia in Kenya, before and after the construction of the Marian shrine. Before, the place was very dry, as you can see in the picture before, without trees and vegetation due to cutting of trees. But after the construction of the shrine by the Franciscans, we encouraged everyone who visits the shrine, especially during the season of creation, to plant a tree. After just a few years, the place has transformed into a green and beautiful place with enough rain for the community, as you can see in the picture where the shrine was constructed there. Now it has become not only a place for prayer, especially in the Marian devotion, but a place where people reflect on care for creation as such eco-spirituality. Here, people grow in faith, wisdom, and care for our Mother Earth. The women you see here belong to the Catholic Women Association. They are the greatest promoters of Marian devotion and care for creation. I want to end here and I thank you and want to take this chance. Welcome our next speaker, our Laudato Si animator, Karen Crott of St. Charles, Ghana Parish, Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, to share about doing an outdoor mass at Scenic Kion Regional Park. Welcome.
Hi. Our planning for Season of Creation last year took place in the spring of 2019 in the Liturgy Committee. We live in a beautiful area with an abundance of hiking trails, and my friend Pam Kemp, a Laudato Si animator, and I hike together frequently. So we came up with the idea of a hike and an outdoor mass that became one of our events. We knew of a fairly easy trail in Scenic Canyon Regional Park where there was a dead end at which we could gather, thus avoiding interruptions and distractions from other hikers on what is quite a popular trail. After leading our parish priest, Father Bart Van Rooyen, on a hike to that site for his input, the plan was approved. The morning of the hike, it was pouring rain, so we thought nobody would come. But we underestimated the determination of our community. A number of families from the weekly family night showed up, and some of us older parishioners turned up as well, all with appropriate rain gear and umbrellas. The entire hike and mass ended up being a deeply spiritual and joyful experience. The park borders Mission Creek, and I was reminded that the forest is alive with the Spirit of God, and we were all one with the forest, the creek, and one another. We were standing on holy ground. The children were playing on a muddy hill as Father Bart set up his altar, a TV tray, and we were all enjoying each other and the day, which was beginning to clear up a bit. For the Mass itself, we gathered in small groups. Younger children continued to play quietly in the dirt or mud. And fortunately, Father Bart has a loud enough voice that the roaring of the creek did not drown him out. I will remember for a long time the feeling of wonder that I had at that time. And I believe it made a huge impression on others as well, as several expressed a desire for an outdoor Mass as a more frequent event. And I just started thinking about this year when we're not allowed to gather in churches. And in Kelowna, we're thinking about when we're going to start actual Masses. And perhaps having Mass outdoors might be an option for a while, as it seems that's a safer place to gather than indoors. So God bless you all, and thank you. This was a bit shorter than I thought it was going to be, but thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Brother Ben, for showing us the rich potential of the season of creation and inspiring us to think in the future what we may do in our own communities. Joining us now will be Amy Wulam Echeverria, who will talk about some upcoming developments regarding the stations of creation. Amy, it serves as the International Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Coordinator for the Columban Missionaries and the board president of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. She is co-facilitator of LISTEN, Laudato Si International Scholars Tertiary Education Network. And she will be sharing some thoughts about an emerging practice via Creatio. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, Erin. Thank you, and thank you all. It is a real joy to be with you as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si in this special time. And I want to thank the previous presenters, Mary Evelyn and Ben and Karen. It's a real joy to hear your inspiration and your practical work happening on the ground. And really what I'd like to share with you now is an invitation mostly. So I'll just share my screen. Mary Evelyn spoke about values and rituals, and that's really one of the things that we'd like to present to you today. you know, we do have a liturgical calendar and liturgical seasons. And of course, two of the most known to us would be Lent and the Stations of the Cross, the Via Crucis, a time when we remember Christ's Passion, a time of lament. Mary Evelyn talked about learning how to properly lament and reconcile with all of creation. And we're learning how to do that now in this emerging, again, as Evelyn said, living into the earth community, where we're discovering Stations of the Cross in an entirely new way with creation and the cosmic Christ. We also have the Easter season, the liturgical season of Easter, in which perhaps slightly less known, but still a practice for the last 30 years, is the Stations of the Resurrection, a time when we celebrate and remember the hopeful witness and expression of the Paschal mystery that life does rise over death. And so this is an important season beyond just Easter Sunday. We are really learning to live into the Easter season with the resurrection, with the ascension, with the transformation. So, and then as Brother Ben spoke about the season of creation, you know, this is for the Catholic tradition, we're still discovering this season, and each year it grows in engagement. And the team at GCCM, we were pondering, you know, ritual. And I think one of the things about the Catholic tradition is that it is both symbol and substance. And so these rituals aren't just, they're more than just, you know, a kind of surface practice, but they really touch deep into who we are as people of faith. And so we'd like to frame, we're developing, and we invite you, this is an invitation to you to help us co-create the stations of creation, to be celebrated in the season of creation, perhaps a kind of via creatio. And the spiritual conversion that we're highlighting there is discipleship. So let me just say a few words more concretely about this idea. So what we would like to explore is Jesus in dialogue, deep presence with creation, to the non-human natural world, in which Jesus becomes ever more aware of his mission, what the Father calls him to. And these are just some examples. We have the Nativity, in which we know the story in which Jesus is not welcomed by the human community, but he is welcomed most intimately in the stable with the sheep and the donkey and all of the critters of the land, and the splendor of the sky, awakening to Jesus's presence and birth. We have the 40 days in the desert, in which Jesus fully becomes aware of the mission that he's being called to. The Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus wrestles and grapples with his Father about this ultimate sacrifice he must make. We have the creation parables that Jesus speaks to us in the language of creation. Jesus frequently prays in creation. And so what we are hoping to develop is a sense that the non-human natural world is more than just background or landscape to the human story, but is really in deep dialogue, that the human and the non-human natural world, that all of creation is in dialogue together. And so to explore how Jesus comes to understand his discipleship, his mission, and in turn, how we as disciples of Christ come to understand our mission, our vocation. Mary Evelyn spoke about ecological virtues. We think this is a really important piece of the stations of creation. Praise, gratitude, work, care, justice, orienting, grounding, nurturing, transforming. These are all practices that we hope to cultivate in the season of creation and with the stations of creation. And I think it was Karen who spoke about the hike that culminated in the mass in the forest, and we're still developing the format, and certainly there can be many formats, but we imagine that the stations of creation could take the form of creation walks or hikes or labyrinths or pilgrimages, all that are unique and particular to your own local context. So this is just a brief invitation to all of you around the world to co-create with us this stations of creation. You see there's my email address. We're very happy to receive your ideas, your suggestions, or perhaps you even have some resources that you already are practicing. And that's one of the great gifts of GCCM is our ability to lift up and celebrate the work that's happening already and amplify it. So that's it. I just, again, want to conclude by thanking all of you that are joining and all of the organizers of the webinar. It's been a real pleasure and privilege to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. What a profound insight to spend time meditating on how Jesus uncovered his own mission through time in nature, through time in the wilderness, the meaning of the nativity. What a profound idea for us to develop our discipleship by following in the way of creation. So thank you for sharing this, and we all look forward to seeing this wonderful new ritual blossom. We now turn to our next case study, which is the Laudato Si chaplet. And for this, we will be joined by Cristina Leaño, who is Associate Director of the Global Catholic Climate Movement, and she will share more about the Laudato Si chaplet. Thank you, Cristina.
Thank you so much, Erin. And it's such a delight to be with all of you. I'm so moved by all the presentations, just filled with gratitude. And I'm really excited to be sharing today this simple prayer practice that was developed by my friend and colleague, Tomás Insúa, as he was praying in creation and meditating on Laudato Si and the Canticle. And it's a prayer practice that has become also part of my own spirituality. And it's a simple prayer technique to pray with creation, inspired by the Canticle of the Creatures of St. Francis of Assisi. And it's really meant to cultivate this ecological spirituality that is called forth in Laudato Si, to deepen our ecological conversion by cultivating that sense of communion with all of creation and with our Creator. And so I'll be sharing a bit about this, and we'll get a chance to practice it a little. And basically, the chaplet is just about praying with St. Francis's own words from the Canticle, which I'm sure all of you, many of you know, is the source of the title of the encyclical that we're celebrating this week, Laudato Si. Laudato Si meaning praise be. But it's done in a simpler chaplet format. And the goal is really to be inspired by St. Francis and the relationship that he had with creation, in which, Dr. Mary Evelyn spoke about this kind of this communion of subjects and not objects. And in Laudato Si, Pope Francis lifts up how Saint Francis communed with creation. Creation weren't just objects, but were his brother and sister. And so we hear in the encyclical that St. Francis communed with all creatures. He would call them creatures, no matter how small, by the name brother or sister. And so this practice of the Laudato Si chaplet is meant to cultivate different, the spiritual attitudes that we see present in the canticle. And you see here an abbreviated version of the canticle. And what I want to point out first is that one of the spiritual attitudes that we find in the canticle that we hope to cultivate in this chaplet is praise. Now, praise is something that we're quite familiar with in our tradition, praising God. We give praise for creation, we give praise for the gifts. But what's unique that you'll see here in the canticle is that we're praising with creation. It's the recognition that St. Francis had that creation was already praising God by its very nature, by its very being. And so our invitation is to join in communion with creation to praise God. And again, we see here that to praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Moon. Again, in communion with Brother Wind and Sister Water, we're praising our Creator. So this is the first attitude, is the praise with creation. And then the second spiritual attitude that we see present in the canticle and that we hope to cultivate through the chaplet is fraternity with creation, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. As we again see here in the canticle, we see clearly how St. Francis called all of the elements and all creation brother or sister. And so in the canticle, you'll see that we'll be doing the same as a way of kind of reprogramming, I would say, how we connect in our relationship with creation. And so in the chaplet, which we will do, focuses on the verses related to the four elements. It focuses on the verse, praise be you, my Lord, through Brother Wind and through Sister Air. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Water. Praise be you, my Lord, through Brother Fire. And praise be you, my Lord, through our Sister Mother Earth. And these, of course, are the four elements which encompass all of creation. And so the chaplet. So the chaplet on a practical, like with many chaplets, can be done with a rosary. But of course, if you don't have a rosary, you can use your fingers, you can just count. But it's of course nice to have something physical to hold on to, because we'll be doing the prayer. You do the prayer a certain number of times. And the recommended location for praying is outside, in communion with the rest of creation. And again, we're reminded, and this was something that some of our previous speakers mentioned, is that outdoors is where Jesus and St. Francis prayed most often. We hear quite often about Jesus going to the mountain to pray. And as Amy just spoke earlier, there's an invitation to remember and to lift up and to ponder how Jesus did pray in creation and how that might have influenced him. And then we're also reminded of how St. Francis spent over 50% of his time in prayer in remote hermitages in the wilderness. And here's a beautiful photo of St. Francis right outside his hermitage. So again, the invitation for this chaplet is actually to go outside and to pray it outside. And so the way that the chaplet is done is that we use the phrases from the canticle and we repeat them 10 times. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Air, and so on. And again, using the rosary if one likes. And the way that we've developed it is that we'll begin with perhaps a song of praise, and then reading or praying with the canticle of the creatures, and then going through each of the elements 10 times, and in between we're perhaps saying a prayer, such as Laudato Si, Omni Signore. And then closing after doing the 4 decades with a prayer of the earth from Laudato Si or an Our Father. And again, it's something that is very organic and it can be made according to how one wants to do it. And as one prays with those words, the other element that's quite beautiful about this chaplet is that as you're praying with Sister Air, you're invited to perceive the elements around you. So as you're praying, praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Air, you can feel your breath. You can get in touch with the wind. And so as you're chanting, praying with those words, you can actually feel and sense into, oh, there's Sister Air. Here is Sister Air within me, around me. When you pray with Sister Water, praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Water, you might look up at the clouds, see the clouds full of water, or if you're lucky to be by a body of water, to see a river, and to sense, oh, Sister Water, praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Water. Or if there's no water available, you might get in touch with the water within you. As you know, we're made up of 70% of water, I think. So you can get in touch with your saliva, or even just the sense of your own water within you. And when you pray with Mother Earth, if you're outside, you might have the benefit of walking barefoot, or you can see the grass. Or if you're not outside, for many of us now, we can touch Mother Earth, just sensing our feet on the ground. And so as we pray praise be you, my Lord, through Mother Earth, we can sense into this earth that supports us, is in connection with us all the time. And then last, praise be you, my Lord, through Brother Fire. If you're outside, you can look at the sunshine, you can see the daylight, or you can even connect with the fire within your own body, these metabolic systems that are constantly processing energy and making us who we are. And so that is chaplet. And so I want to take a moment now, because you can say things, but it's much better to do them, is to try just a decade. If you have a rosary, wonderful. If not, it's okay. And we'll just pray a decade of the chaplet and see what that feels like. And so I invite you, as we enter into this brief time of prayer, just to connect with Sister Air, to feel your breath, and to know that the air that you're breathing is shared by every person on this call right now, over 1,300 people, and shared by all those in our globe. And it's the same air breathed by those from the past and the future. And so as we stay connected to the simple act of breathing, our inhalations and exhalations, we pray together. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Air. 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 Laudato Si. Omni Signore. Amen. So just in closing, just to note that you can do this really in any way that works for you, but we often say 5 to 10 minutes per day, whatever is your preferred time to enjoy nature. And you can extend it to other creatures, whether Brother Tree, Sister Flower, and it can be extended to other verses that include gratitude, thank you, my Lord, or repentance, sorry, my Lord. And so in closing, if you're interested to learn more, you can actually see a document about it, but we encourage you to pray it as a way to deepen your conversion, ecological conversion, and communion with all of creation. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina. What a joyful and rich new prayer experience for us all to celebrate and make our own. This is so promising, a way to unite ourselves with the intimate spirituality of Brother Francis and with Pope Francis. So we're very grateful for this chaplet. Thank you so much for sharing it. And I know many people will want to look for that. Our final case study is the Laudato Si Circle. And Piera Savino will share that with us. Piera is a member of the Laudato Si Circle in Trastevere, Rome. She is a sustainable project manager and a Laudato Si animator through GCCM, and she will share about being part of a Laudato Si Circle. And after her sharing, we will have a few moments for Q&A, I hope. So if you have questions, please begin to write them in the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to get to some of them. So, Piera, thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to share my presentation. Today, I would like to tell you about the Laudato Si Circle in Rome, Trastevere, and how being part of the circle helps us to live the commitment to protect creation. Our circle was born from a group of students enrolled in the first edition of the joint diploma in integral ecology, starting from the Laudato Si promoted by the Pontifical Universities in Rome. The lessons we attended were of great inspiration, and during the seminars, we got to know each other better. We increased the awareness that the ongoing ecological crisis is threatening the planet, and it was important to act immediately, individually, and in community. To follow up the training and to keep this light on, we decided, with the guidance of Thomas Insua, co-founder of the Global Catholic Climate Movement, to activate the first Laudato Si Circle in Roma, based in Trastevere. Our participants are from different nationalities, and despite the distance, we have always been united. So, the health crisis has not discouraged us. Our slogan has always been distant, but united. But what is a Laudato Si Circle? It is a small group of people who meet regularly, possibly in a green space in the nature. The three pillars are prayer, reflection, and action. Laudato Si Circle can be a link between local and global, sensitize the local community to the global ecological crisis. Each circle, in fact, is connected with the others. We have also periodical national and global online meetings. Let's talk about the first pillar, prayer. For instance, we organize a monthly mass. We pray the chaplet, as was explained before. It's really helpful. And then we use all the beautiful material prepared by the Global Catholic Climate Movement. And there are materials for every liturgical season, as was said before. This year, we would have liked to do the Via Crucis in a park in Rome, but despite the health crisis, we did not give up, and we did it online with the Assisi Circle and other communities, and so much more people followed us. The second pillar is reflection. And for instance, we attended a spiritual retreat in Assisi to deepen our vocation. But we also reflect while sharing, for instance, a plastic-free meal, looking for new ideas and proposals, and very good idea with very good dishes prepared with love by the participants. We share sober lifestyles. We try to be careful consumers, to use the car only when necessary. We try to buy from ethical producers, local farmers, and let's set a good example. We testify that a lifestyle more attentive to creation is not sad or boring, on the contrary. The third pillar is action. For instance, we participated to the climate strikes, and we bring the Laudato Si principles in every day of life. In fact, now I will tell you about how some friends of the circle carry out their ecological mission with determination in their lives and in their job. I can't mention everyone, but I thank everyone. Now I introduce you Maria Grazia Meloni. She is from Rome, graduating in dogmatic theology at the Gregoriana University. And I'm proud in the Laudato Si circle, she became my personal counselor and expert in spiritual matters. Her commitment with ENGIM, that is the Ente Nazionale Giuseppini del Murialdo, was to train on the Laudato Si encyclical approximately 5,000 young people who participate in cooperation projects. And with the help of teachers and pastoral collaborators of the institution, she is organizing integrated ecological laboratories. Moreover, each year, the ENGIM organizes training days for the directors and collaborators of 25 vocational training centers in Italy, and for the development cooperation office that operates in 16 countries around the world. This year, they proposed the topic of Laudato Si for an ecology integrated into everyday life. Among the many speakers who participated, the testimony of Father Jostrom Kuretdam, coordinator of the ecology sector of the Dicastery for Human and Integral Development of the Vatican, has been of great importance. Now, they would like to implement good practices, to experiment together with families, dioceses, other schools, and so on, to carry out concrete and participatory action in support of the planet. Another friend of ours is Vincenzo. He has a graduate in banking and finance. He holds a doctorate in theology. He's a parish priest in Calabria, and he's a writer and a journalist. He manages a weekly radio column on ecological spirituality to raise awareness of ecology's issues, starting from the contemplation of nature, of which we are part, with our gaze on believers and non-believers too. His reflection for this afternoon that he wants to share with us is: exercise a compassion towards nature, abysmal, profound. Only if we know how to listen to his cry, we can feel a profound communion of which we are part, and we must strive to protect, defend, and above all, educate. Education is very, very important matter. In fact, now I introduce Simonetta. She's a professor at the Università Pontificia Salesiana and a communication consultant. One of her most recent work is the campaign in favor of family sustainable farming, the so-called Abbiamo riso per una cosa seria, for FOXIV. Family farming, in fact, focus on families, in particular women and young people, key factor of territorial development both in Italy and in the countries of the south of the world. They give, with this initiative, the communities the right to produce the food necessary for their livelihood through a production model linked to the tradition of the territories and able to bring a significant improvement in the quality of life. Last but not least, the importance of the Laudato Si circle. We have a chat, we have also a chat. We share particular moments of our lives by joining in prayer and thanking together. This feeling of being siblings is for me one of the greatest joy of the circle. I conclude suggesting to those who still do not know the Laudato Si circles to visit the website, where you can find many inspirational materials and guidelines for starting a new circle. Thank you. And if you want to get in touch with us, please write to the Laudato Si Trastevere@gmail.com. And I let you with these wonderful photos, pictures of the living chapel that is now based in Rome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Piera. It's very inspiring to see the amazing work that is happening with the Laudato Si circle, and know these are happening in other Laudato Si circles, and that this is an option for all of those on the call to become part of a Laudato Si circle themselves. So at this point, we have an opportunity for a few questions. And we have been listening to those on the chat. May I mention one? People are asking how to start a Laudato Si circle. One way to do this is to check the GCCM website. There is more guidance there. People are also asking about how to find the Laudato Si chaplet. Again, you can look at the website www.bit.ly/Laudato Si chaplet. And I believe that website was sent in the chat to everybody. Somebody else asked about how the prayer and the deepening of our ecological spirituality leads to concrete action, and what are examples of concrete action. So I will put that question out to all the panelists if someone would like to address that. What are the concrete actions that can follow from our deepened life of prayer and ecological conversion?
Well, I think we could say these examples we've just shown are arising from an ecological spirituality, but I think all kinds of actions, those protests against oil pipelines or even civil disobedience, I think the divestment movement of religious communities, education, all of these actions are arising from a transformation of consciousness. And that's what an ecological conversion calls us to. So, but without that, I think we can run out of juice, we can run out of energy for these changes. So we've just had examples of spiritual changes, but the actions will come forward. And this encyclical is an indication of a very transformative moment in our society around the world. And it's going forward for 7 years after this next year as well. So it will take some time, but these changes will happen with a deep ecological spiritual basis.
And Mary Evelyn, you mentioned divestment, and we had the tremendous news of 42, I believe, new institutions divesting through the collaborative work of Operation Noah and the GCCM. This is tremendous because it's something we can do to protest the funding of the destruction of our planet. And many people can also choose renewable energy for their own homes, and in that way resist participating in a fossil fuel structure, along with all the other lifestyle changes. And we've seen in this pandemic that they do add up. Absolutely. So we've seen the possibility for that transformation. I don't know if anyone else wants to weigh in on practical actions.
I think one invitation too is to not see a dichotomy between the prayer and the action. Can we see joining a protest with others as a spiritual practice? Can we see like making those choices that Erin mentioned of just being more mindful around our use of resources as actually, a way of deepening connection with the elements. So I think too, there's, the theme for Laudato Si Week is everything is connected. And so how can we see everything as being connected? And the other thing I think just to mention is what Pierre has shared is so profound, because of this journey Laudato Si talks about. It's not an individual ecological conversion. We need a communal conversion. And so being with others in prayer is such an important part too, as part of this, that will naturally lead to action.
We do see these as interconnected, the action and the prayer. So I think that connects to one of the great questions that was on the chat. What is the ecological dimension of the Eucharist? Or maybe that's the same question as what is the Eucharistic dimension of our ecological spirituality? That we see ourselves, as Professor Tucker said, in a sacred communion. So I put out that question for the many wise and spiritual people on this chat, and particularly you, Mary Evelyn. How do we reflect on the ecological dimension of the Eucharist?
Well, it's a beautiful question, and I would pick up on this same point. Of course, prayer and action, knowledge and transformation are deeply unified. But I think that's why the sacramental basis of ecological spirituality is so crucial. Eucharist means thanksgiving. And it's this sense of sacrifice, making holy, which I like to think of as an H and a W. So if you take that deep sense that a Eucharist is celebrating a transformative and sacrificial moment, that is actually at the heart of the whole universe, that these processes of creation and destruction are continually evolving over time. So the Eucharist is that sense of thanksgiving for the sacrifice that Christ clearly made as a person, but the whole universe, this divine milieu, is making this transformation possible too. So nurturing with both the symbol and the form of bread and wine is one of the most powerful sacraments we have. And every religious tradition has this sense of food right at the heart of ritual. And it's why we need to make food healthy for people and available across the world. This is a very, very important thing. So much more to be said, but a wonderful question.
So it's a profoundly spiritual question that calls us to imagine ourselves within the sacredness of the entire cosmos, the cosmos called into being, as you reminded us, Mary Evelyn, by Jesus, who is the Word of God, present before all creation. And yet this cosmic identity challenges us to restore justice for all. And we see the interconnection of that contemplation and action, which I think was in the mind of someone who asked another question about how do we respond to the poor during both the crises of climate change and this time of pandemic, and how do we reimagine economics and the energy system?
Well, again, very quickly, I hope others will jump in. I mean, there's new economics are emerging. There's a green economics, there's ecological economics. And this has been emerging for a long time. We've had people like Herman Daly talking about steady state economy. We have degrowth. These are some of the most important forces that a Laudato Si perspective can offer, because it has a profound critique of progress without, progress has a cost of consumption that is destroying the planet. So the ecological and economic combination of this encyclical is extraordinary. But we do have in academia, in business and so on, other models developing, and that's what we have to support. Just as we've talked about divestment, there's corporate social responsibility, there's all kinds of things. I just want to say my brother is head of Chubb Insurance in New York. The insurance industry is deeply, deeply concerned about these issues and wants to make a difference. That's some of the force of change that is happening. And we have to put pressure, as Aaron said, to make it happen even faster.
One of the ways we can all take action, everyone on this call, is by accelerating this spirituality from Laudato Si. And somebody asked, how can I become a Laudato Si animator? And that truly is becoming the leaven that brings this spirituality to more and more people. So please see the GCCM website for how to become a Laudato Si animator. One person specifically wanted to think about linking her parish and diocese's concern for evangelization with bringing people back to the pews with inspiring engagement with the season of creation, and how to see those as shared initiatives. And maybe working with the Laudato Si animators might be a way of doing that. So there's much good work going forward. There are tremendous things for us all to do in next steps. I'd like to briefly mention some of those next steps, which include thinking about Sunday, May 24th, which is the Global Day of Prayer. It is the Global Day of Prayer for the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si. Catholics around the world will pray a common prayer at 12 p.m., noon local time. And the prayer is available at the GCCM website for you to pray at home, in your small group, or wherever you find yourself at noon. Many communities are also holding online Laudato Si masses, so you can click on the website to find one in English. And Laudato Si Week is the first step in a year-long journey to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si. While we reflect and prepare now, we will take action during the season of creation, which begins September 1 and runs through October 4th. The season of creation is an annual celebration of prayer and action for creation, and Pope Francis has invited all Catholics to participate in it. You can register on the Season of Creation website for more information on how you can take ambitious action. So before we close, I would like to just invite us to ponder so much that we've had the time to reflect on today. Behind me is the cross of Jesus, but we are Easter people. We are Easter people going forth in joy for the work of discipleship that we have. And it's so exciting to think about the way of creation as a new ritual that we may all join as we ponder our role in this shared discipleship, because we know that the harvest is plenty and the laborers are precious. So every one of you on this call, every one of you listening in on YouTube or Zoom, your labor is precious and will have great effect. We know that we're called to preach the gospel of creation, to affirm how we are all part of a loving communion. As Mary Evelyn lifted up those lines from Laudato Si, this is a quickening struggle for justice and a joyful sharing of this gospel of creation, as we are truly a communion of subjects in a sacred universe. And our task is to be orienting ourselves, grounding ourselves, nurturing each other and our beautiful earth, and transforming our world. So in Pope Francis's world, in his final lines from Laudato Si, he says, "In the heart of this world, the Lord of life, who loves us so much, is always present. He does not abandon us. He does not leave us alone, for he has united himself definitively to our earth, and his love constantly impels us to find new ways forward. Praise be to him, and let us sing as we go." So I hand our webinar over to Cristina Leano for any closing words. And of course, deep, deep thanks to Mary Evelyn, our brilliant and wise keynote speaker. Thank you so much for being with us as always. We also thank all of our case study participators, Brother Ben Ayodi, Karen Kraut, Christina for sharing about the chaplet, Piera Savino, and Amy Willem Echevarria. Thanks to all of you for being part of today's session.
And we, of course, want to thank Erin Lothas for this beautiful facilitation and for holding this wonderful space to reflect on this important topic. So thank you, Erin. And I want to thank all of our translators behind the scenes who are trying to keep up with the speakers. Grateful for all of them and for all of our GCCM staff who have been responding to the many questions that have been coming in. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that we want to acknowledge. So we invite you, there's more events happening this week. Check out the Laudato Si Week website. There's events probably in your country. There's a listing of events that are being organized by all of our partners. So we thank you for being a part of this special moment to celebrate the encyclical. And we look forward to seeing you soon and taking action together. God bless.